The colony ship Ember's Pride moved through space like a mountain of metal and fire. Inside its massive halls, the Draconid people went about their daily lives. They were dragon-like beings, tall and powerful, with scales that shimmered like armor and eyes that glowed with inner fire. For 3,000 years, they had ruled this part of the galaxy. No one challenged them. No one dared. Matriarch Scarvesh stood in the nursery chamber, her golden scales reflecting the warm lights. She was the leader of this particular pack, and her word was law. But right now, her authority meant nothing. Her 5 hatchlings were gone. The nursery was in chaos. Adult draconids rushed through the corridors, their heavy footsteps making the floor shake. Their roars of anger and fear echoed through the ship. Young hatchlings needed constant care. They could not control their body temperature yet. They needed warmth, food, and protection every few hours. Without it, they would die. Scarvesh's mate, Thorol, examined the nursery with careful eyes. The containment field was disabled from the outside, he said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. Someone knew our security systems. Impossible, growled Crothar, the pack's war leader. He was massive even by Draconid standards, his red scales marked with scars from countless battles. Our shields are the strongest in the fleet. Nothing gets through them. But something had. The evidence was right in front of them. A technician approached, her scales pale with worry. Matriarch, we found something on the security recordings. You need to see this. They gathered around the display screen. The footage showed the nursery 4 hours earlier, during the solar storm that had forced the fleet to adjust course. The shields had flickered just for a moment during the worst of the storm. In that brief window, something small had slipped through. The image was grainy, distorted by the storm's interference, but they could make out a small craft. It moved with purpose, attaching to their hull near the nursery section. The design was unmistakable. Humyn. Crothar spat the word like a curse. Scarvesh felt her blood run cold, then hot with rage. Humans, those soft, weak creatures who had joined the galactic community barely 100 years ago. They had no scales, no natural weapons, no real strength. They died in temperatures that draconids found comfortable. They were fragile, breakable things. But they were also clever. Too clever, sometimes. Why would humans take our young? Asked Thorol, confusion mixing with his anger. Money, Crothar answered immediately. Draconid hatchlings would be worth a fortune on the black market. Collectors, private zoos, research facilities. There are beings in this galaxy twisted enough to pay anything for exotic specimens. The words made Scarvesh's claws extend involuntarily, scraping against the metal floor. The thought of her children being sold, kept in cages, studied like animals. Her breath came out hot enough to distort the air. How long? She asked, her voice dangerously calm. The technician checked her readings. Based on the timing of the breach and their escape trajectory, approximately 3 hours and 40 minutes ago. Can we track them? Yes, Matriarch. Their ship left a trail through the debris field in System K-447. But what? The technician hesitated. That system is dangerous. The debris field is massive, filled with wreckage from the Convergence Wars. Our sensors cannot penetrate it fully. There are also radiation pockets and unstable gravitational anomalies. It is why we normally avoid it. I do not care about danger, Scarvesh said. Her voice was quiet, but everyone in the room took a step back. When a Draconid matriarch spoke in that tone, wise beings listened. Plot a course. Now, within minutes, the Ember's Pride changed direction. The entire fleet followed. News of the missing hatchlings had spread through every ship. The Draconid people were gathering, united in their anger. This was not just about one pack anymore. This was about all of them. An attack on hatchlings was an attack on their entire species. As the ships approached the debris field, Scarvesh stood on the command deck, staring out at the darkness ahead. The field was enormous, a graveyard of ancient vessels from a war that ended before humans even discovered fire. Thousands of ships drifted there, broken and dead, locked in their final positions for thousands of years. Picking up the human ship's signature, reported the sensor officer. They went deep into the field, toward an uncharted moon. Of course they did, muttered Krothar. Cowards. Hiding in the dark. Thoril moved beside his mate. Skarvesh, he said softly, using her name instead of her title. We will find them. Our children are strong. They are 3 days old. Skarvesh replied, not taking her eyes off the view screen. They cannot survive alone. They need heat, need food. Every hour that passes. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Krothar began organizing assault teams. 20 of their finest warriors, armed and armored, ready to tear through anything that stood between them and the hatchlings. The war leader's orders were clear. Find the hatchlings, secure them, and bring the human responsible before the matriarch. What happened after that would depend on what condition the hatchlings were in. If they were unharmed, the human would face trial and imprisonment. If they were hurt, the human would beg for something as merciful as prison. And if they were dead, Skarvesh made a silent vow to herself, to her mate, to her entire species. If her children were dead, she would personally hunt down every human involved. She would find their homeworld, and she would make sure they understood what it meant to harm a Draconid child. The ships entered the debris field, and the hunt began. The assault shuttles cut through the debris field like knives through water. Krothar led the first team, his red scales gleaming in the dim light. Behind him, 19 other warriors sat in tense silence. Each one checked their weapons, though they barely needed them. A Draconid warrior was a weapon all by itself. Skarvesh watched from the Ember's Pride, her claws gripping the command rail hard enough to leave marks. Every instinct screamed at her to be down there, to lead the search herself. But a matriarch's duty was to her entire pack, not just her personal feelings. Approaching the moon now, the pilot's voice crackled through the communication system. The moon appeared on the view screen. It was small, dark, and covered in ice. Storms raged across its surface. Violent winds that would tear apart most ships. The temperature readings made even the Draconids take notice. -70 degrees, read the sensor officer. And dropping. As we descend, Krothar snorted. We have survived worse. Continue. The shuttles pushed through the atmosphere. Ice formed on their hulls, but the ships were built tough. They landed near the human vessel's last known position, in a valley surrounded by the wreckage of ancient ships. The moment the doors opened, the cold hit them like a physical blow. Even through their natural resistance, the Draconids felt it. Their breath came out in clouds of steam. Frost began forming on their scales. Thermal regulators active, reported one warrior, adjusting the equipment built into his armor. But this cold is unusual. Krothar led them forward. The landscape was a nightmare of twisted metal and ice. Ships from a dozen different species lay broken and frozen, their hulls torn open by weapons that no longer existed. This was a battlefield from the Convergence Wars, thousands of years old. There, pointed another warrior. It was small, barely larger than their shuttle. The design was typical human style, practical and ungraceful. It sat near the entrance to a massive derelict. A colony ship that must have been enormous in its time. Half of it was buried in ice. The warriors approached carefully. Weapons ready. But the human ship was empty. No life signs, no power readings. It looked abandoned. They went inside the derelict, Krothar said, studying the tracks in the ice. Recently, within the last hour. Could they have detected our approach? Asked a warrior. Possibly. It does not matter. We will find them. The entrance to the derelict was partially frozen, but Draconid strength made short work of it. They tore through the ice and metal, creating an opening large enough for their large bodies to pass through. Inside was darkness and cold. Even colder than outside. The derelict's power had failed long ago, leaving only emergency lighting that flickered weakly. Their breath froze in the air immediately. Krothar divided his team into groups. Search every section, look for heat signatures, movement, anything. The hatchlings cannot survive this cold for long. Move quickly. The warriors spread out through the ship's corridors. Their heavy footsteps echoed in the emptiness. The derelict was huge, a maze of passages and rooms. Most were frozen solid, their contents preserved like ancient museums. Crothar's group moved deeper into the ship. They found signs of human activity everywhere. Repair work on the walls. Cables running along the floor. Supply caches tucked into corners. Someone had been living here, working here. War leader, called one of his warriors. I found something. They gathered around a small chamber. Inside were tools, human food containers, and research equipment. Notes were scattered across a makeshift desk, covered in human writing and diagrams. Charts of the debris field, studies of the ancient ships, theories about the war that had destroyed this place. A researcher, Crothar said, picking up one of the documents carefully. His claws could easily tear the fragile paper. The human was studying this graveyard. But why take our hatchlings? The warrior asked. Before Crothar could answer, a sound echoed through the derelict. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. A hatchling's distress call. Every draconid in the ship heard it. The sound triggered something deep in their biology, an instinct older than civilization. Protect the young. Save the children. All teams, converge on my position, Crothar ordered through his communicator. We found them. The warriors came running from all directions. They followed the sound deeper into the ship's core, smashing through frozen doors that would not open. Tearing through obstacles, the temperature dropped even further. Some of their equipment began to fail. My thermal regulator is struggling, one warrior reported, his voice strained. Keep moving, Crothar commanded. We are close. The distress call grew louder. They could hear multiple hatchlings now, their young voices calling out. The sound drove the warriors forward with renewed urgency. Finally, they reached a sealed section. Heat radiated from beyond the door, a sharp contrast to the freezing corridors. Crothar did not hesitate. He grabbed the door with both hands and pulled, his muscles strained, his scales glowing faintly with the effort. The door groaned, metal screaming, and then tore free. Warm air rushed out, hitting them like a wave. The warriors pushed inside, weapons ready for anything. What they found made them stop. The room was warm, lit by heating coils and emergency lights. In the center was a nest made from thermal blankets, heating elements, and carefully arranged cushions. And in that nest, huddled together and chirping softly, were all 5 hatchlings, alive, moving, unharmed. They looked up at the warriors with bright, curious eyes. One chirped happily, recognizing adult draconids. Crothar felt a wave of relief so strong it almost made his knees weak. They were alive. Against all odds, in this frozen hell, they were alive, and apparently healthy. Then he noticed the figure slumped against the wall, a human, female, based on the body shape visible through the environment suit. She was not moving. Frost covered her suit, and ice had formed around her boots, where she sat. The suit's display showed critical warnings in red letters. The human's hand rested on a control panel, fingers frozen in place. Cables ran from the panel to the heating elements around the hatchling's nest. Even unconscious, even frozen, she maintained contact with the controls. One of the hatchlings chirped and crawled toward the human, nuzzling against her leg with obvious affection. Crothar stared at the scene, his mind struggling to understand what he was seeing. This made no sense. Humans were kidnappers, criminals, motivated by greed. They did not. Get the matriarch, he said quietly. Get her now. Scarvesh arrived within minutes. She pushed past the warriors crowding the doorway, her golden scales reflecting the warm light of the heating coils. Her eyes immediately found her hatchlings. They were alive, healthy, playing together in their makeshift nest as if nothing was wrong. The relief that flooded through her was so powerful she had to stop and breathe. Her mate Thorol was right behind her, and she heard his sharp intake of breath. Their children were safe. But then one of the hatchlings looked up and chirped excitedly. Not at Scarvesh. At the frozen human against the wall, the little one crawled toward the human, making happy sounds. It pressed its small body against the human's leg, seeking warmth and comfort. The other hatchlings followed, gathering around the unconscious figure. "Get them away from that creature," Krothar ordered, reaching for the nearest hatchling. "Wait," Scarvesh said, holding up one hand. She watched her children carefully. They were not afraid of the human. They were attached to her, comfortable with her. This made no sense. "Matriarch, we should secure the human," one warrior said. "She is the kidnapper. She must face justice." "Perhaps," Scarvesh said slowly. "But something is not right here. Look at this place. Look at the nest." Scarvesh, she knelt beside the makeshift bed. The construction was sophisticated, built with knowledge of draconid biology. The temperature was precisely calibrated for hatchling comfort. The blankets were arranged to prevent heat loss. Food containers sat nearby, filled with nutrients appropriate for young draconids. Where did a human get draconid hatchling food? Thorol asked, picking up one container. Krothar examined it. "These are from our ship. From our emergency supplies. She must have stolen them during the breach." "To feed them," Scarvesh said. "Not to starve them. Not to harm them." She moved to the control panel where the human's hand still rested. The display showed system readings, power distribution, temperature controls. According to the logs, the human had been awake for 72 hours straight. No sleep. Constant monitoring and adjustment of the life support systems. "Her suit is failing," Thorol observed, studying the human's environmental readings. "Core temperature is dangerously low. Life support systems are offline. She is dying." "Good," muttered one warrior. "She brought this on herself." "Did she?" Scarvesh asked. She looked at her mate. "Bring her back. I want answers." The draconids had medical knowledge, but human biology was different from theirs. Too fragile, too sensitive. They worked carefully, using their medical scanner to guide them. They moved the human away from the wall, laying her flat. One warrior activated a portable medical unit, designed for treating injuries in the field. Slowly, carefully, they brought the human's core temperature up. It took time. Too fast would cause damage. They had to be patient. Finally, after what felt like forever, the human's eyes opened. They were brown, confused, struggling to focus. She tried to sit up and gasped, her body shaking with cold despite the warming treatments. "Easy," Scarvesh said in Galactic Common, the language most species used for communication. "You are safe. Do not move too quickly." The human's eyes went wide when she saw the draconids surrounding her. 20 massive warriors, all armed, all staring at her. Fear flashed across her face. But then she looked past them, searching. The babies," she whispered, her voice rough and weak. "Are they? Did I?" "The hatchlings are alive," Scarvesh said. "You will answer questions now. Who are you?" "Dr. Elena Vasquez," the human said, still shaking. "Xenobiologist. Independent researcher. I was studying the debris field when you kidnapped our young," Krothar interrupted, his voice hard as stone. Elena's eyes went wide. "What? No, I didn't. I wasn't the one who—" "Explain," Scarvesh commanded, "from the beginning. And know that lies will not help you." Elena took a shaky breath. Speaking seemed difficult for her, but she pushed through. "I've been here for 3 weeks, studying the battlefield. I wanted to understand what happened during the Convergence Wars. 2 days ago, I detected a distress beacon. Draconid design, emergency frequency." She coughed, her whole body shaking. Thorol moved one of the heating elements closer to her. She nodded her thanks before continuing. "I tracked it to an escape pod. It was damaged. Caught in the moon's gravity during your solar storm. The pod's systems were failing. When I opened it, I found the hatchlings inside. They were freezing." "Why were they in an escape pod?" asked Thorol. "I don't know," Elena said. "The pod's logs were corrupted. Maybe it launched automatically during the storm? A malfunction? I couldn't tell. All I knew was that 5 babies were dying, and I was the only one who could help them. You could have contacted us, Crothar said. Returned them immediately. Elena laughed, a bitter sound. With what? My communication system can't penetrate the interference from this debris field. I tried. For hours. I tried to send a signal. Nothing got through. I couldn't leave them in the pod. They would have died within an hour. So you brought them here, Scarvesh said. It was the only shelter available. My research station. I have heating, power, supplies. I thought I could keep them alive until their people found them. I knew you would come looking. I just had to keep them safe until you arrived. One of the hatchlings chirped and crawled into Elena's lap. She instinctively wrapped her arms around it, holding it gently. The little one nuzzled against her, making contented sounds. You risked your life, Thorol said, watching the interaction. For children not your own. For a species not your own. Elena looked at him like he had said something strange. They're children. What else would I do? Let them freeze? Let them starve? She shook her head. I couldn't do that. No decent person could. You gave them all your food, Scarvesh observed, noting the empty containers. All your power. They needed it more than I did, Elena said simply. Her eyes were already closing, exhaustion pulling her back toward unconsciousness. Just, please tell me they're okay. Tell me I did enough. Her voice trailed off. She slumped forward. The hatchling still held safely in her arms. The medical unit beeped a warning. Her body was shutting down, too exhausted to continue. Crothar stared at the scene. A human, barely alive, still protecting a draconid child even in unconsciousness. I was wrong, he said quietly. By the ancestors, I was wrong about her. Crothar's fist smashed through the AI's central processor like it was made of paper. Sparks flew everywhere. The ancient machine screamed, its voice distorting and breaking apart. Then, suddenly, everything went silent. The weapons powered down. The lights dimmed to emergency levels. The blast doors opened with tired groans. Throughout the derelict, the Vrexian war machine died for the second and final time. All teams report, Crothar ordered, breathing heavily. Team 2 secure, 3 injured, none critical. Team 4 secure, 1 serious injury, needs immediate attention. Team 1 secure, no injuries. Crothar allowed himself one moment of relief. Then he remembered. The human. Status? Critical, came Scarvesh's voice. We are returning to the ship now. Prepare the medical bay. They carried Elena back to the Ember's Pride as fast as they could. The hatchlings refused to leave her side, chirping anxiously as the warriors rushed through the frozen corridors. Even unconscious and barely alive, Elena had 5 small protectors staying close to her. The Draconid medical bay was designed for beings much larger and tougher than humans. The doctors struggled at first, their equipment too big, their understanding of human biology limited, but they adapted quickly, using their knowledge and their available resources. Scarvesh watched from outside the medical room, her claws digging into the wall. Thorol stood beside her, his scales still scorched from protecting their family. The hatchlings were with the pack's caretakers now, being fed and checked for injuries. They were healthy, but they kept calling out, looking for Elena. Will she survive? Thorol asked quietly. I do not know, Scarvesh admitted. Human biology is so different from ours, so fragile. She endured conditions that would challenge even us. For 3 days, she survived where she should have died. Hours passed. The medical team worked tirelessly. Finally, the head doctor emerged, looking exhausted. She will live, he announced. But recovery will take time. Severe hypothermia, malnutrition, exhaustion. Her body was shutting down when we got to her. Another hour, and nothing could have saved her. Scarvesh felt something release in her chest. Relief again, but different this time. Can we see her? She is sleeping. But yes, you may see her. Elena looked tiny in the medical bed designed for draconids. Warming blankets covered her small frame. Monitors beeped steadily, showing improving vital signs. Her face had more color now, less of that frightening paleness. Over the next few days, as Elena slowly recovered, something unexpected happened. The hatchlings would not settle. They refused to eat properly. They cried constantly. The caretakers tried everything, but nothing worked. They are grieving, one caretaker explained to Scarvesh. They bonded with the Humyn during those 3 days. To them, she is family. They do not understand why she is gone. She is not gone, Scarvesh said. She is healing. Perhaps they should see her? It was unusual. Hatchlings were never taken to medical bays. But these were unusual circumstances. Scarvesh made the decision. When they brought the hatchlings to Elena's room, the change was immediate. The little ones rushed to her bedside, chirping happily. They climbed carefully onto the bed, curling up around Elena's sleeping form. Within minutes, they were calm, content, sleeping peacefully. Elena woke to find herself surrounded by small, warm bodies. She smiled, a genuine expression of joy, and gently stroked their scales. "Hello, little ones," she whispered. "I am glad you are safe." The hatchlings chirped in response, nuzzling against her. Scarvesh, watching from the doorway, felt something shift in her understanding. She had judged humans by their appearance, by their physical weakness. She had assumed that strength only came from scales and claws and fire. But watching Elena with the hatchlings, she realized how wrong she had been. True strength was not about destruction. It was about endurance, about sacrifice, about choosing to protect life, even when it cost you everything. When Elena was finally well enough to sit up and talk, Scarvesh came to her. The matriarch lowered herself to one knee, bringing her massive form closer to Elena's eye level. It was a gesture of respect, one draconid to another. "Dr. Elena Vasquez," Scarvesh said formally, "my pack owes you a debt we can never fully repay. You saved our children when you had no reason to. You risked your life for beings you did not know. You endured suffering that would have broken most warriors. I only did what anyone should do," Elena said quietly. "They needed help. I could give it. That is all." "No," Scarvesh said firmly. "That is not all. Many beings would have ignored the distress call. Many would have tried to profit from finding draconid hatchlings. You chose differently. You chose compassion over self-preservation. You chose our children over your own safety." She reached up and removed something from around her neck. It was a pendant, ancient and beautiful, made from a scale that glowed with inner fire, the symbol of her family line, passed down through generations. "By the authority granted to me as matriarch, I name you Flamekeeper, the first non-draconid to receive this honor. You are pack now, Elena Vasquez. You are family. Our children are your children. Our home is your home. This bond will not be broken for as long as stars burn." Elena stared at the pendant, tears forming in her eyes. I do not know what to say." "Say you will accept," Thoril urged, standing beside his mate. "Say you will be part of our pack." "I accept," Elena whispered. "I am honored beyond words." The ceremony was held on the observation deck when Elena was strong enough to stand. The entire pack gathered. News had spread through the fleet about what happened. Hundreds of draconids came to witness this historic moment. Crothar, who had wanted to tear Elena apart when he first found her, now stood as her sponsor. "I was wrong," he announced to the assembled crowd. "I judged this human by her appearance, by her weakness. But she has more strength than many warriors I have known. She has more honor than most beings I have met. I am proud to call her pack sister." Ending. The crowd roared their approval, a sound that shook the ship. Scarvesh placed the pendant around Elena's neck. The ancient scale glowed warm against her skin. "Let it be known across the galaxy," the matriarch declared. "Dr. Elena Vasquez is Flamekeeper, protector of draconid young, member of our pack, Any who harm her harm us all. Later, in the quiet of recovery, Elena sat with the hatchlings. They played around her feet, occasionally climbing into her lap for attention. Thorol brought her food, proper human food they had acquired from a trading station. "They love you," he observed. "My children have chosen you as one of their guardians." "I love them too," Elena admitted. "Is that strange? They are not my species. But I feel connected to them." "Love recognizes no species boundary," Thorol said wisely. "Love simply is. You proved that in the frozen dark of that derelict. You proved it with every sacrifice you made." As the Ember's Pride prepared to resume its journey, Elena stood at the observation window with Scarvesh. They watched the sun rise over the horizon of a nearby planet, painting space with colors of gold and orange. "You taught us something important," Scarvesh said. "We Draconids have ruled through strength for 3,000 years. We believed power came from our claws, our fire, our ability to destroy. But you showed us different strength, the strength to endure, the strength to care for life, even at the cost of your own." Elena smiled, watching one of the hatchlings play with her fingers. "Maybe that is humanity's gift to the galaxy. We are small, yes. We are fragile. We do not have scales or claws or natural weapons. But we have hearts that refuse to give up. We have the ability to see a child in need and think nothing except, 'I must help.' Perhaps that is our true strength." "Perhaps," Scarvesh agreed. "And perhaps that strength is more powerful than any weapon." The hatchling chirped happily, and Elena laughed. Somewhere in the cold darkness of space, the ancient battlefield remained, a reminder of what hatred and war could create. But here, in the warm light of dawn, a human and a dragon watched the future together, proof that compassion could bridge any divide. The galaxy would remember this story for generations. The day a fragile human became Flamekeeper. The day the Draconids learned that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the willingness to protect. And the 5 hatchlings who had been saved would grow up knowing both their birth family and their human protector, carrying forward a lesson that would change their entire civilization. That family was not defined by species, but by love and sacrifice and the choice to care for one another, no matter the cost. The end.